Expelled college students of Reddit, why are you expelled? I went to a private Christian university, and I have a friend who got expelled for supposedly exorcising a demon out of someone in the middle of a wide open courtyard. I unintentionally got another student expelled. We were critiquing websites we had built when I noticed one that looked exactly like mine with a few tweaks. I popped open the source and noticed it was a line-for-line copy of my code with a few changes to the CSS. I brought it up to the professor to protect myself in case he noticed them, though I doubt I would have been suspected. Mine was more cohesive. The changes he did make didn't make the site appealing. Anyway, apparently it was his third time plagiarizing. After twice you go on trial with the school. If you don't get expelled, then a third time is the nail in the coffin. Edit. I did not get expelled, haha. This is just a third person anecdote. Edit 2. We routinely critiqued work in class. Most of our sites were built through CodePen. All he needed was any student's CodePen username, and he had access to the code. I'm about 99.3% sure it's how he did it. I spent too much time drinking and not going to class. I was a junior with a 1.6 overall GPA. University said they didn't need my ilk around there and would open my spot for someone who would appreciate it. This got my attention. I went to the dean and talked with him for a couple of hours trying to get back in. He said no, 19 out of 20 of you guys go back to doing the same thing. I told him I would be the exception. He gave me another chance. From then on out it was 4.0 every semester. I finally got my GPA up over 2.5 so I could graduate. I made sure and went back to the dean's office to thank him and tell him that I was that 1 out of 20 that made it. Installing Bitcoin miners on all the computers in a video editing lab. Our professor explicitly warned us not to run Bitcoin miners on our university's high performance cluster as that will get you expelled. I highly suspect someone did exactly that the semester before. I was making a search engine for our school teacher evaluation page. It absolutely blew up in popularity and a large portion of the school was using it, about 5k views per day. Essentially it was like Rate My Professors, except it used the evils that they force students to do at the end of the class as data. I also added features that made it more desirable to students. It became so popular that it was showing up on the front page of Google for certain teacher names. Some of those teachers had low ratings and got pissed off and complained. I had unintentionally violated IP laws because the evaluations were under password protections and my site was not. The only reason I didn't get expelled was because the dean of my department had my back. He did research and concluded the information should not have been private in the first place, then sent a public information request to make it so my project did not break the law. I definitely had people asking for my expulsion for a scary amount of time. I got thrown out after I graduated from a master's degree program. The teacher asked me out for drinks when I asked to talk about one of my papers. I turned him down. I had to take a class with him in my next to last semester and he tried to throw me out for plagiarism. I tried to press harassment charges and the ombudsman talked me out of it by saying I would be stuck in his class if I pressed charges. The ombudsman asked to contact administrators at the school and urged me to get an incomplete in the guy's class and just graduate next term. After graduation I'm getting ready to go on job interviews and I receive a letter telling me I have to enroll in 4 courses and get A's to offset the F the teacher in question wants to give me. I follow up and the teacher, who is now the chair of the program, elects himself my academic advisor and takes over the situation. He fakes my grades and tells me I have 6 weeks to complete the entire course all over again. He tells me if I do my best he will make it possible to graduate as it's mathematically impossible. I can't complete the work in time and he throws me out. I'm given permission to reapply and soon it becomes apparent they are not going to let me in to fix the situation. I contact the graduate department and meet with their legal counsel. I show them the faked grades, explain the rule violations, and inform them of my having reported the guy. They tell me to try to work with the program again, and then they will intervene. The program refuses any solution involving my readmission. The graduate dean allows me to file academic grievances and rules that there are lots of things wrong, but does nothing about them. He concludes by telling me I can either get readmitted or give a replacement course via transfer. I take the course and submit it. The graduate dean says they can't accept the course if I can't get enrolled. Dean rules the matter reviewed and closed. I sue the school alleging unjust enrichment. I provide all of the documents and records as it was all conducted via email, and I have my student folder. These get certified via discovery. The school evokes sovereign immunity and says that since the fraud and negligence happened more than 2 years before I filed, they are immune to prosecutions. Judge agrees. I file appeal. As of August of this year, it will be 10 years. My roommate got expelled for basically never going to class, not even when there was an important exam. He spent all night smoking weed with me and playing video games, not with me, and then slept all day until about 5 PM. Like I would wake up, go to my 8:30 lecture, get lunch, go to lab 2 to 5, then come back to my room and my roommate was still sleeping. I found out the following summer that he had gotten a letter from the university asking him not to come back. Last I heard of him, he had enrolled at a commuter school where he made the dean's list. Expelled because my GPA dropped below the competitive level for the engineering school at my college. I was given the option of transferring to a different school. They recommended I go into the humanities or be expelled. Well, thankfully I had a job from the previous summer that was willing to hire me on full time before this happened. So I took the expulsion and went to work full time. Since then, I've gotten my certifications and work in the trades, doing fairly well for myself. So, yay, edit. Since a lot of people have asked similar questions, I'll answer them up here. I left with a 2.9 GPA. I needed to maintain a 3.25 in order to stay in the program I was in, as it was also providing a scholarship. Couldn't afford school without it. I went into HVAC in the trades, with an emphasis on programming. If people are genuinely curious, I highly recommend looking into the trades. Some people just aren't meant for university, not saying they're not smart. For instance, I graduated high school valedictorian with a 4.45 GPA. Some brains just aren't set up to be sitting learning in a desk for 4+ years. There's a stigma that it's a lower class job, but don't let that stop you. I paid off the student debt I had within a year and a half of working, and at 23 AM looking to purchase my first house. The trades, assuming you get technical training or go into a highly sought trade, pay extremely well. I make a little over 48k a year after being in the trades for a little over 3 years, and that's still as an apprentice. Also, not bashing the humanities one bit. My brother went that route, and he's one of the most intelligent people I know. I just have a mechanically inclined mind, and it would have been wasted going that direction. I had a friend who skipped all classes and failed everything because all he wanted to do was play LOL. He got a warning that if he didn't get his grades up he would be suspended for a year. He got suspended. When he went back to the school a year later, the same thing happened again. Now he can't go back to that college again. Wasn't expelled but damn near. Junior year I took an elective class called Reading Fiction. Cool class, but the teacher was extremely strict and took the class very serious. I'm alright at writing papers, and this class involved heavy writing about writing techniques, symbolism, foreshadowing, etc. We were assigned to read a book that I can't remember the name, but I wasn't into it at all. I struggled to finish it, and struggled even more to write a detailed paper on it. I slammed out the minimal page requirement and sources needed. It was not my best work, but it was serviceable. I get an email from the teacher a few days later saying he would like me to come into his office hours. He accused me of plagiarizing certain segments of my paper, which I did not, and was ready to send my case to the dean. Apparently some things I sourced in my paper were done incorrectly, which lead him to believe I straight copy and pasted from the internet. The second hour of office time was him passive aggressively calling me an idiot. I'm bipolar, rocked college and got straight A's, while I was manic as shit, sleeping 3 hours a night for several years, drinking, drugs, partying and all that. Then I curled up in a dark hole and cried for several months and couldn't even hardly wake up enough to go to any of my classes. Got academic probation and told my advisors I had no idea what was happening to me. This wasn't the real me. Managed to pull off another year of straight A's and little to no sleep. Then I crashed again and did nothing but sleep for months on end, wanting nothing more from life than for it to end as soon as possible, please. By my own hand if necessary. This time I got kicked out completely. Fast forward a few more years of the mania depression cycles and it eventually got so bad that I stole a car while manic and drove 800 miles across the US on some paranoid delusional insanity. I thought I was phasing between alternate realities and the government was going to try to capture me and study me to see how I was doing it. Don't ask. Luckily I ended up in the hospital instead of jail and I got diagnosed finally. Now I take a duck ton of medicine and I'm not quite so crazy anymore. The end. Rubber pillar is leaking. Failing grades, insane roommates and theft accusations. I bummed out due to massive stress, appealed, got back in. More serious detailed response. I was going to the Art Institute of Philadelphia, one of the few places I legitimately consider hell on earth. The school paired me up with various roommates who have had severe issues, refusing to shower 6 months straight, hardcore drug addicts, a guy who openly fapped to pictures of dead bodies. While I was still in the room. Nightmare fuel. The entire dorm was terrible. People were constantly kicking or punching body-sized holes into and through walls. Elevators would drop multiple floors when you were in them. It was a nightmare. And then, one winter, a fire alarm started going off every single ducking night around 2 AM and we'd have to evac the building into the dead of winter. Nothing quite wakes you up like fire alarms and freezing cold. I mentally started to lose it. My grades dropped and I failed the semester because I could never sleep. Between the fire alarms and overwhelming funk I was getting extremely worn down and stressed. This continued on. One of the deans calls me in one day and accuses me of credit card theft. According to the school, I had stolen a credit card from one of my roommates and racked up a massive bill. Lane Bryant, and they had proof. Lane Bryant, which I didn't know at the time, was a women's clothing store that specializes in plus size apparel. It was implied I was buying these for my girlfriend, but I had to point out to the school that I was gay. They changed their story to the fact that I must have been buying them for myself, implying I was a cross-dresser. I kind of lost my sheet and asked them to provide any shred of proof to back up their claims. They had none, but proceeded to harass me about this sheet for weeks, demanding I pay back the money I never took, or they'd have to escalate things. Then I ended up with a roommate who was caught growing drugs, shrooms, in my closet. He got, but the school decided that chaperoning the guy was not their responsibility, and the guy ended up stealing half my sheet, to which the school was like, "Did you have insurance?" "No." "Haha. Not our problem. Please get out of my office." After that everything tanked. The stress piled on, and the plurality of sheetiness that exuded from the school got to me, and I failed out. As I said, I was able to appeal, get back in and later graduate. Bonus safe drama. A few semesters after all this shit happened, the school paired me up with 2 roommates whose previous roommate pulled a gun on them and threatened to kill them. School moved the 2 guys into my room, and the guy who threatened to kill them broke into our building and got into my apartment. This school was an absolute nightmare. I had a particularly rough semester and got D in a class that I had previously dropped after about a week the prior semester because my schedule was too busy. Department rules say that you can't attempt a class for credit more than twice, including drops, so I got kicked out of my major. I was 14 hours away from graduation at the time. The academic advisor said that I could either change my major, so basically start college all over, or duck off for a year and then come back on probation. So I guess I'm not expelled per se, but I'm taking an involuntary gap year. I went to college right after high school and didn't really have direction as to what I wanted to pursue for a career. I signed up for classes and went because I was told you are supposed to go to college and get a degree. I started to not care about school about 3 to 4 semesters in and stopped putting forth effort. I decided I would rather work my job, drink with friends, and play my favorite video games. My grades tanked, and then I stopped going to finals and failed many courses. My university finally gave me a warning and then dismissed me. I spent a semester off before applying to the local community college down the road to pursue a career as an EMT. I found a passion for medicine and a desire to achieve something more than drugs, video games, and a dead-end job. I repaired my GPA by getting an associate's degree in arts, general AA, and then went back to the university that dismissed me. I eventually would graduate with a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and go on to medical school afterwards, where I would finish ETH chapter and start my residency training in family medicine. I'm almost done with intern year. When I was in college, I got suspended 3 times for bad grades. At one point my GPA was a 1.0. I finally got it together and graduated with a degree in finance, and a few years later went back and got a second bachelor's in accounting. I think my GPA is a 3.2 now. I'm not working in finance or accounting because I can't find a job. I mostly just hate my life now and wish for death. Obligatory: I'm not an expelled college student, but I knew a guy who got expelled from an Ivy League for getting caught with too much cocaine. He works at California Pizza Kitchen now. Freshman year of engineering, and I was all of 3 months in. I had invited the guy over to play some Halo. As he walked through the hall, he noticed my dorm neighbor had his door open with beer cans everywhere. He shakes his head and reluctantly tells me he can't game and has to write this guy up. The night after, I wake up to a loud knock on my door. Thinking it's some prankster, I mumble, "Duck off, I'm sleeping." Then hear my Raz voice me, "It's no joke." Open up, adrenaline kicks in, and I bolt out of bed. It's the Ra with 2 security guards. I was told that they were notified I had made dangerous sounding comments and had to search my room. They found a disassembled airsoft gun, battery plus SPRING that I was, well, taking apart, a length of rope, and a standard toolbox, and an electronics kit. This is where it got horrible. The length of rope was wrapped neatly around a water pipe in my room. It was black and purple, and my GF at the time was way into bondage, and I was too lazy to put it away. Note, I was just storing it on the pipe, not hanging someone from it. The security officers claimed it looked like a noose, despite no knots. The electronics kit, they said, looked like bomb parts, to which I gave them the exact name of the professor who was helping me with my project. They also took several of my tools from my toolbox. I was immediately marched to the security office, and at 2 AM had to wait for my parents to pick me up. Talk about the worst car ride ever back home. I had no idea what had happened, and I wanted to just throw myself out of the car. A day later we went back to talk to the administration. It was recognized that I was thrown under the bus, but that was the extent of any sympathy give. I was faced with a full semester suspension or leave, and have any judicial records sealed. I chose the latter. That day, in front of half the dorm, my parents and I packed up the car and left. I was able to apply and get into a different school for the spring semester, though without the $35K scholarship I had previously received. But now I'm an employed civil engineer and life's been going pretty well. Was expelled my second semester at a North US school. Think Michigan, Montana, North Dakota. It was my second semester being an older transfer student from the mid-Atlantic. I ended up slipping on ice and fracturing my femur, my humerus, and 2 fingers on ice outside my apartment. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital during that time recovering and doing PT. Finally got home. My apartment was 30 minutes away from campus. Since I couldn't drive, nor did they have cabs I could afford or public transit, ended up failing everything and having to move back home. Only a year later I find out about an office that can help you out with getting tuition back and expunging your record of classes due to medical issues. Had to wait a year to get back in. This year I'm finding myself in the same situation with aplastic anemia, but I only got diagnosed 1 week before my insurance expired. I'm 16 credits from graduation, and I'm stuck with the bureaucratic processes of trying to take classes of the summer. It'll probably take me to mid-July, which means I have to come back in the fall to finish up. I'm about ready to give up. Personally knew a bright individual that was kicked out of a prestigious university for skipping too many classes. He showed up for the important classes, got A's on all of the tests, but due to the fact that he had missed too many classes, he failed all of them. Must not have read that page of the handbook. He now works at the local grocery store and I see him when I come home on breaks. Edit. 2. College was Princeton. He was on a full ride. A kid who worked at my dining hall got expelled and presumably arrested for breaking into girls' dorm rooms and watching them sleep. He had been doing it for a while because people were noticing their doors were unlocked in the morning. He got caught when he tickled a girl's feet. She woke up and screamed. Her roommate woke up and screamed. We all screamed, and I picked up his shifts. Was expelled the first time I went to college, back in the 90s. I remember on orientation day, we walked by the fraternities and my dad got all excited. Walked up to the Phi Kappa tours. They were pretty cool. Acted all interested in me. I didn't look around anywhere else. Hell, I was 17 and very intimidated. I rushed them, and turns out, they were massive party animals. I lived and worked 40 minutes away from school, and had a girlfriend back home. So far, right? I scheduled all my classes at 7 to 11 am. It was hard to get up at 5 and drive in to school and pay attention in a 1,000 seat lecture hall. So I started to stay at the frat house and blow off my classes. The first semester I got a 0. The next, I got a 33. 1D. I wasn't the only one expelled from school that year. Me and 4 other guys were competing for the lowest GPA. What a ducking waste. Stupid colleges wasted on the young. I went back in my 30s and got my degrees, but I wasted a tremendous amount of time working shitty jobs for shitty people. Did very well in high school. 4.8 GPA, 4 years DROC, 100 plus hours of community service, played football for 2 years, played hockey the last 2, and was named team captain for my senior season of hockey, etc. Earned a 3-year Army ROTC scholarship and my mom died unexpectedly the 5th week of my freshman year. Got back to school after being home for 12 weeks and none of my professors gave a shit except my ROTC cadre. Failed every class except ROTC and French. Got a D, but D's get degrees right. And during my academic hearing after the first semester they literally laughed at me when I told them the reason for my poor performance was the 12 weeks I missed due to my mum's passing. After I wasn't able to raise my GPA to a 2.0 after the second semester, which was my fault, lacked a will to be there, and was pretty depressed, I was expelled. Lost my scholarship, and couldn't talk to my mom about it. Duck private colleges. Wasted 20k plus there. Edit. Thanks for all the positivity. It gives me the feely feel. And I'm doing great now for all of those who are wondering. Currently set to leave for the Air Force May 23rd, and I'm going to get my degree through the Air Force. Looking back I wish I would have taken that semester off, but hey what can you do? One thing I learned from this is that no matter how messed up your situation may be some people or institutions just won't give a shit, while a parent passing is a valid excuse I feel. You can't let anything get in the way of your dreams. As my odd friend Shia once said, just do it.